Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters. We know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you walk and your talk is constant.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Death to Vanilla podcast, and we're here to challenge you to creatively create, to boldly innovate, and to experiment. Why? So that you can get better results than everyone else by doing something out of the box and get those out of the box results, right? So I'm your co-host, Stephen Burkhart. This is my... Did I just call myself a co-host?
You did.
I am the host.
He is the host.
/ co-host.
I am the co-host, Rylynn Trader.
You sure are. And I appreciate you being on this show, even though apparently I don't know who the host is or the co-host. So on this episode, we're actually going to talk about being vanilla and how to avoid that. And so we want to talk about two different brands that we follow that we really, really like, who really stand out as different in their industry. And we're excited to be able to share a little bit about them. So maybe we'll start with you since I've been talking now. If you could share what brand has really stood out to you, and what techniques do you think people could replicate in being not vanilla?
Yeah, so authenticity and vanilla, I think, go hand in hand, right? Like, you really want to be authentic, so that way you're not being totally vanilla and going with the flow, or you want to stand out and you want to be scroll stopping. And one brand that I see that does this really well is Pit Viper. They're probably one of my most favorite brands ever because they're very fun, they're very authentic, they're not afraid to post stuff that maybe not is for everyone, which I think is super cool. And if you don't follow them on Instagram, go check them out. They're a very fun, different brand. They post about like old grannies giving the middle finger, or like, you know, like they're very out of pocket people, which I really like because they're authentically being like, oh, we're Pit Viper, we're cool, we're, you know, outdoorsy. Whereas
I do what I want.
Yeah. And if you don't know what Pit Vipers are, they're glasses, which they're pretty cool, but they really appeal to that sort of audience, right? They're being authentic to their audience, and they're pulling on their little heartstrings or of emotion of being funny and being really them. Whereas I think a brand that does this totally opposite is Oakley, right? They're pretty professional. They're sponsoring athletes, where Pit Viper does as well, but they do it in a way that's a little different, a little more fun. And Oakley does it in a way that's like very sportsy and cool and like
and polished.
Yes, and polished, and it's very on brand, and it makes you feel like very, what's it called? It's like when you feel fancy or whatever.
Which is a funny feeling for wearing Oakleys.
Yeah, but it's how you feel, right? You feel like very name brand. And Pit Viper, I would say, the price of their product is very, very similar to the price of Oakley's, but totally different feeling, totally different vibe. And they do that in a way by just posting on social media and being themselves.
That's so funny because I was like literally thinking of like, oh, like what would be like a vanilla brand talk about? Because we did not discuss what your other option was. And so that makes total sense, where I was like, I was literally thinking of that very brand. And it's like you said, it's not like they're doing a bad job. Like they're very on brand.
Absolutely.
That brand is just like, it's just, not a fun brand like the other brands.
Yeah, I could pull up other brands that are very similar to it.
Yeah. Well, they're going for that like that high fashion, like I'm very sexy and cool because I'm wearing this particular glasses.
I drive fast cars.
Yeah. Ooh.
Kind of a vibe.
Right. Yeah. It's. But yeah. It can end up feeling vanilla. It certainly feels a lot like you said, like a lot of other brands, and then that's what makes Pit Viper stand out.
Yeah. No, Pit Viper does a very good job. Go check them out. They're. I know in this one we were very talking about how we wanted to talk about Death to Vanilla, right? It's the name of the podcast. They're definitely killing that vanilla vibe, and they're doing stuff that are different, and they're not always posting the same thing too. I think that sometimes brands get overly consistent almost to the point where it's like the same thing over and over and over again, and it's like turn the page, like let's do something a little different.
Right.
So I think they do a good job of being like, this is our brand and we're still on brand, but also here's something a little different from our normal content, because you want to kill that vanilla and you want to be something, tasty, you want to be flavorful.
Right. For sure. I think that really it really ties in well to what we've talked about in like our very first episode of this new season, which is like the meme videos was like a way to do that. But and not that you have to do meme videos. Don't hear that. I mean, you don't have to make trending content, I guess.
Yeah.
But sarcasm. But you know, it's just that idea that like it is that idea of like people get so fixated on like making a certain kind of content, and the reality is the variety of content, right? Like even from a storytelling perspective, right? Like you want to have a variety of content, even if it's not funny, even if it's just informational of like, okay, like we're going to have this style and then this style and this style. And it can all be on brand, but it doesn't mean it needs to feel the exact same way every single time. I wasn't actually going to bring this up, but like for me, I think one thing that's really interesting is like, I've always wanted to be a photographer for a guest campaign. Cause I just think there's like so much fun, and I don't really like the direction they've headed, like stylistically. Like when I first saw them and I was like, oh, I want to shoot a campaign. It was like when they did like a bunch of like denim and kind of like gritty, which was like totally my vibe. And they've gone like very like more fancy and like leather and stuff. And so I really haven't dug that, but like they have evolved. Like every season they're coming out with a slightly different vibe. They're shooting in a different location. You know what I mean? Like they're doing things to like shake it up so their brand is progressing over the years. And so it doesn't feel the same. Like I literally like went from I would die if I shot a campaign to like it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm just like I don't like where it headed. Like that's just me. Like that's just my preference. But you know, it certainly is not the same brand that it was 10 years ago by any means. Whereas I do feel like an example of like an Oakley is like a brand that like for the most part has stayed pretty consistent throughout the years. And maybe, you know, let's be honest, I don't think any of us are looking for like Rolls Royce to be like hip and cool.
Yeah.
Right? You want it to feel like, you know, fancy AF when you're in the car. And you want it to be big and bold and all those other things. Like, so maybe a legacy brand like that, it doesn't make as much sense. But, you know, whatever. To each his own. I mean, every brand has their own look and feel, but I think that variety of content is how that works. And for me, the one brand that I think of when I think of doing something different is a guy I've gotten to know recently, Matt Gottesman. We did a really cool branding shoot with him in downtown Phoenix. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. We'll drop a link for it, right? So... Right. So I've gotten to know him, and he's not like an inspirational person, but a lot of like, I would say back to our last podcast talking about emotions and being intentional about it. A lot of his emotions and that he puts in me is inspirational. And, but you know, when I think of inspirational content, what I think of is like the ridiculous amount of Instagram, accounts that are like the face of a lion and then a quote, or like, you know, a boxer or a guy, you know, someone from Peaky Blinders with like a cool quote of like how to be, you know, a BA. And it's like, okay, like it's just like it's just a different picture with the same quote that I've seen in 10 other podcasts or other Instagram accounts. Whereas like Matt Gottesman to me is inspirational, but the way he goes about that is by being very like thoughtful and asking great questions and all those other things. And to me, that is what he makes me think and imagine my life to be is what is inspirational. And so for me, it's like I find him inspiring, but I do not find him like an inspiring brand in that vanilla sense. So that's it's been interesting just to like see that contrast between those things, and it changes how you respond to them. I think even though those other brands get like lots of likes, I don't really know what that accomplishes really.
And I think for at least any businesses or brands that are watching this right now, it's never too late to move from what you're doing right now to be not vanilla, right? Because the world is always changing. Like we were talking about with guests, like they're changing, they're evolving, and that's okay. If your brand needs to do that, then do that. If your brand needs a complete rebrand, then do that. It's okay to do that. I think too often people feel like they're stuck or they're too comfortable in what they're doing. It's okay to change a little. Like that's an okay thing to do. So, I know.
Taylor Swift.
Thing.
Taylor Swift.
Literally.
When I knew about her, she was like a country chick that would like go and like
Yes.
go to proms with guys, and they would be like the most popular guy in school.
Crazy.
Very different than the current day Taylor Swift.
She's probably the world's biggest pop star right now, like arguably.
Yes.
Like easily, like her fan base is absolutely insane because let's just say, like, she changed, and that's an okay thing to do.
Yes.
Like sometimes that's a better thing and a better way to go. Even us personally, like we just recently decided that we were going to go a different way with some of our content. It wasn't a big change, but it was definitely a change that we needed to have, and so far it's been performing really good. And
Yes, it has.
and it's absolutely something that your brands can do too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's scary. I'm sure when Taylor Swift moved from country to like rock or whatever you want to call it, like I'm sure that was scary.
And she got
But-
a lot of hate for it too. Like some people were like,
Yeah.
ugh, like I don't like it. But if you look at it now, a lot of those people went back to liking her again.
Yeah. Yeah. Haters gonna hate, but
Haters gonna
also
hate.
she's got a
Yeah.
huge fan base. I think she's like our modern day Madonna, because like
Oh,
Madonna
absolutely.
got tons of accolades for like how she evolved and stayed relevant over the years, and Taylor Swift's done the same thing. It's been incredible to watch. And you know, like you said, your brand can do that too. Your brand can wake up tomorrow and decide, you know what, we're going to do things just a little bit differently,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Like it's one of our mottos: always improving.
Yes. And it'll kill that vanilla.
That's right.
Death to it.
Death to Vanilla. Right? Such a gnarly name. But yes, so what are you doing? Or maybe you're in a place where you need to be challenged to do something different. You can always reach out to us. We'll give you an idea or two. And you can then implement that and see how it performs, right? There's always, like I said, it's experimenting. How do we experiment in a healthy way, in a conscious way, in an intentional way that we can try new things, right? To be able to break that cycle, break that vanilla. So what do you need help with? We'd love to help you in breaking that cycle of vanilla. And maybe your brand or an individual who has navigated that successfully. You've started vanilla and you broke out. We'd love to hear how you do that. Feel free to share, reach out to us, send us a message, comment. However, the platform that this is on will work for you on that way. We'd love to hear those stories, both to share and to learn ourselves. So thank you so much for watching and listening, and hope you enjoyed another episode of the Death to Vanilla podcast.
Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you're walking your talk is constant.